So imagine sitting in a pitch black metal box,
What?
like no bigger than a walk-in closet, and you're stranded in the middle of a muddy field.
Sounds pretty claustrophobic already.
Oh, it gets worse. You are surrounded by these screaming, totally panicked corporate executives who are they're hurling obscenities at each other in the dark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the only other sound you can hear is this faint, kind of muffled echo of the legendary rock band Chicago.
Wait, really? Chicago?
Exactly. Just playing their hearts out to over 500,000 people, a few hundred yards away. Welcome to today's deep dive.
That is quite the visual.
Right. Today we are jumping into this brilliantly chaotic excerpt from Kenny Denton's memoir, There Ain't No Rule in Rock and Roll. And our mission is basically to look at the anatomy of a spectacular backstage disaster.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a story that really strips away all that grand, sweeping mythology of live music. Because, we tend to romanticize historical events like the 1970 Isle of Wight Festival. We picture the massive crowds, the Cultural Revolution, the pure art of it all.
The Woodstock vibe. Right.
Exactly. But Denton's memoir forces us to look at the ridiculous, claustrophobic, and entirely human reality required to actually capture that history on tape.
Yeah, we are looking at what happens when you take massive professional egos, sky-high corporate stakes, and just shove them all into an incredibly fragile physical environment.
Recipe for disaster.
So let's get you situated. It is Friday, August 28th, 1970. We're at the Isle of Wight Festival, which, fun fact, actually drew a larger crowd than Woodstock.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. But as we said, we are not out in the grass with the crowd. We are inside a mobile recording truck parked right behind the stage.
And this is about an hour before Chicago is scheduled to perform.
Yep. And that physical environment, the truck, that's exactly why the tension is already so high.
Because, a mobile recording truck in 1970 is not a comfortable place to be.
Not at all.
Today, you might record a live show onto a sleek laptop, right?
Right.
But back then, they were relying on these massive, mechanical 8-track tape machines.
Giant reels of tape.
Exactly. This truck is basically a narrow metal corridor. It's lined floor to ceiling with heavy heat-generating tube amplifiers, massive power supplies, and these really delicate analog recording desks.
So it's an oven.
Oh, it is cramped, it is incredibly hot, and operating this gear requires extreme uninterrupted focus.
And the guys running the sauna of a workspace are absolute pros.
For sure.
Our core crew is Vic Mail, who's the senior recording engineer, and the memoir's author, Kenny Denton.
And Kenny is working right alongside him.
Yeah, he's basically handling all the chaotic communication with the stage crew, like trying to get all the microphones set up properly. And just to give you an idea of Vic's competence, he was the guy contracted to record almost every single act at this entire massive festival.
Which is insane.
Right. The only exception to text notes is Miles Davis. But everyone else, that's on Vic.
Which is a staggering logistical feat. Live recording in 1970 is completely unforgiving.
You can't just hit undo.
Exactly. You can't fix a bad recording in post-production with a few clicks like we do now.
Yeah.
If a microphone drops out, or, if the tape speed warps because of a slight voltage drop from the festival's generators.
Which happens all the time at festivals.
Right. If that happens, that audio is permanently ruined.
Yeah.
So for Vic to be trusted to record dozens of the biggest rock and folk acts over a single weekend, that means he doesn't just know his gear.
He's a master of the environment.
Yes, he is a master of situational awareness. He understands the unique electrical quirks of that specific truck, the limits of the power grid, and how to rapidly reset a stage between vastly different bands.
He is the anchor holding it all together.
Definitely.
But of course, about an hour before Chicago goes on, that localized expertise is just completely upended.
Here comes the trouble.
Yep. The truck gets invaded by Chicago's entourage, who have flown all the way in from the States.
And they haven't just come to watch.
No. They brought a separate engineer sent specifically by Columbia Records to take over the recording desk.
Just walking right in.
Yeah. So Vic is essentially told to step aside, let the corporate guy take the reins, and basically just stand in the corner to advise on which buttons to push.
Which is a total usurpation of authority in his own domain. And honestly, it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, so?
Well, you are abruptly replacing someone who intimately understands the physical and technical limits of this specific environment with someone who only has a generalized theoretical knowledge of how to record the band.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to make sure I'm following. Because if I am an executive at Columbia Records, right,
Sure.
and Chicago is one of my biggest, most profitable acts, and I'm paying for this live album, don't I have every right to send my own engineer? I mean, isn't Vic technically just being kind of difficult by not gladly handing the keys over?
Well, on paper, yeah, the corporate logic makes perfect sense. They want their guy on their investment.
Right.
But the flaw in that logic is ignoring the mechanics of the environment itself. In a pristine, controlled studio in New York, that Columbia engineer is likely brilliant.
Oh, sure. Best of the best.
But out in a muddy field, dealing with unpredictable festival power grids and a custom-wired mobile desk, generalized talent is useless without localized context.
Ah, I see. It's less like replacing a chef in a Michelin star kitchen and more like swapping the pilot of a commercial jet right as the landing gear drops.
That is a great analogy.
Because every single fader and dial on that recording desk is currently calibrated to a specific chaotic reality out on that festival stage.
Exactly.
The new engineer might know how to fly a plane in theory, but he doesn't know what any of the warning lights actually mean in this specific jury-rigged aircraft.
Exactly. And that lack of situational awareness immediately breaks down the workflow. Because keep in mind, the Columbia engineer didn't just walk in alone, quietly assess the situation, and take over.
No, of course not.
He brought a whole team of people with him.
Right. And this is where we transition from a tense professional handover into just pure, unadulterated comedy.
It's so absurd.
Denton describes this entourage with such a vivid phrase in the memoir. He actually calls them the Marx Brothers on acid.
It is the perfect visual.
It really is.
You are instantly picturing this rapid-fire, overlapping, completely unhinged physical comedy, but layered with this surreal, logic-defying chaos.
And it was completely chaotic because everyone in this newly arrived entourage suddenly had their own conflicting ideas on how to record the band.
Too many cooks.
Exactly. It wasn't one unified plan. It was this whole team of people crammed into a metal tube, arguing, stepping on each other's toes, and barking contradictory instructions at Vic and Kenny.
Just a nightmare.
And Denton even speculates in the text that they were probably just doing all this to justify the sheer cost of their plane tickets.
And you know, what's fascinating here is the behavioral psychology of that speculation. Like, why do people inject chaos into functioning systems?
Right. Why not just leave it alone if it's working?
Often, it is a subconscious defense mechanism against their own obsolescence.
Oh, that's interesting.
Imagine if that entourage had walked into the truck, saw Vic had the desk perfectly calibrated for Chicago, and just said, "Looks great, keep it up."
They have nothing to do.
Instantly, their presence becomes unjustified, their salaries, their flights, their authority, all pointless.
They have to look busy.
Right. To prove they are necessary, they have to overcomplicate the process. They have to actively dismantle a working system just so they can be the ones seen reassembling it.
The classic corporate maneuver, right. Fixing what isn't broken just to leave your fingerprints on it.
Exactly.
And the mechanical reality of this is brutal for Vic and Kenny. Think about what Kenny Denton is actually trying to do in that moment. His job is to relay microphone requirements to the stage crew.
Right. Out on the stage.
Like, put this mic on the kick drum, put that mic on the brass section. But the instructions keep changing depending on which Columbia executive is shouting the loudest inside the truck.
It creates total operational paralysis. Because live mixing an 8-track tape is highly tactile.
You're really hands-on.
Yeah, you are physically riding the faders, adjusting equalization knobs in real time. It requires a clear, singular chain of command.
Which they absolutely did not have.
No. If you have 5 different people shouting conflicting technical specifications, the person whose hands are actually on the desk cannot function.
Right.
The environment has stopped being a technical workspace. It has just become a theater for corporate egos to perform their own importance.
But, you know, against all odds, they somehow bumble their way to the starting line.
Miraculously.
Yeah, the tape actually starts rolling. Chicago walks out onto the stage. They start playing. And according to Denton, it is surprisingly fantastic.
They sound great.
Yeah, the band is incredibly tight. The sound is thundering out of the monitor speakers inside the mobile truck. The entourage has successfully hijacked the operation, and it genuinely looks like they are going to pull it off.
And that false sense of security is vital to understanding the disaster that follows.
Oh, completely.
The egos those in the room feel entirely vindicated at this point. They forced their way in, they disrupted the local crew, they dominated the space, and now the music sounds brilliant.
They're popping champagne in their heads.
Right, they feel like masters of the universe.
Which sets up the irony perfectly, because right in the middle of this triumphant, thundering performance, the universe decides to humble them.
Big time.
Without warning, the massive 8-track recording machine just stops. And a fraction of a second later, the entire truck is plunged into total pitch-black darkness.
A total systemic collapse of the environment they thought they controlled.
Let's really put you in that room for a second, because the sensory shock of this moment is just incredible.
Yeah, imagine that.
Prior to the blackout, they are monitoring a live feed of a massive rock band. We are talking driving bass, huge brass sections, pounding drums.
Very loud.
To hear it clearly over the bleed of the actual festival outside, they probably have those internal monitor speakers cranked up to 120, maybe 130 decibels.
It is pure bone-rattling volume.
And then, instantly, nothing. The monitors die, the lights die. The only thing left is that faint, ambient bleed of the band playing on the stage, just echoing through the thin metal walls.
The contrast is jarring. You go from absolute auditory overload and hyper-focused technical tension straight into a sensory void.
And how do these highly paid, self-assured experts react to this void?
Wow.
With absolute unhinged pandemonium. The same people who, 10 minutes ago, were confidently barking orders and insisting they were the undisputed captains of this ship.
They completely lose their minds in the dark.
Denton notes that they were screaming, hurling obscenities at one another, bumping into the gear. He jokes in the book that it was hard to tell which of them was having the bigger heart attack.
I can just picture it.
And meanwhile, Vic and Kenny, the guys who were shoved into the corner, are just sitting there in the dark, entirely calm.
Because Vic and Kenny's foundation is built on functional reality. Whereas the Entourage's foundation was built purely on optics and ego. When you are solely focused on asserting your authority, you have zero resilience when physical reality refuses to cooperate.
Screaming is just panic.
Exactly. The panic from the Entourage is the sound of their authority evaporating. Their entire power dynamic required that technology to be functioning.
Oh, wow.
The second it died, they had nothing to fall back on except raw panic.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to look at the deep, dark comedy of how absurd that reaction truly is.
It really is funny.
Think about it. If you are supposedly an elite audio engineer and the power suddenly cuts out on your equipment, your very first instinct should not be to start screaming obscenities at your coworkers in the pitch black.
Not helpful at all.
Right. Your instinct should be, where is the breaker box? Let's find a flashlight. Let's check the generator.
Exactly. It highlights the vast difference between perceived expertise and functional competence.
Ah, that's a good way to put it.
The Entourage possessed the titles and the bravado, but when the system literally short-circuited, they lacked the fundamental, practical problem-solving skills that a local pro like Vic Mail relies on every single day.
Because things break all the time for him.
Exactly. Vic doesn't panic because a blackout isn't an existential threat to his identity. It is just a mechanical problem that requires a physical solution.
And that leads to my absolute favorite part of this entire story. While the corporate experts are busy having their collective meltdowns and shouting in the dark, the actual professionals decide to just go to work.
They just get it done.
Yeah. Vic and Kenny quietly step away. They leave the screaming entourage sealed inside this stifling pitch-black box, and they walk outside into the cool night air to figure out what actually happened.
They physically remove themselves from the emotional noise to focus purely on the mechanics of the failure.
Yes. Denton explains that they spend about 10 minutes out there in the mud, rummaging around in the dark.
10 minutes feels like an eternity in live music.
Oh, I'm sure. They are tracing the routes of the power leads. They are feeling their way along these massive, thick, multi-core cables that snake through the festival grounds, trying to diagnose this catastrophic failure.
Right.
And think about what they must be assuming at this point. Like, did the conflicting setups cause a massive power surge that fried the desk?
That's entirely possible.
Or did one of the massive tube amps overheat and blow the main fuse for the whole stage?
Yeah, those are entirely logical assumptions. Given the chaotic, improvised way the equipment had been patched together over the previous hour, a complex electrical failure was highly probable.
But the reality wasn't complex at all. The reality was hilariously, painfully mundane. They followed the lines, and they discovered that somewhere out in the dark, someone had simply walked past and kicked out the mains plug.
Which is just staggering when you think about
It's incredible. You have to picture this setup. All of this state-of-the-art, delicate recording gear, all these heavy amplifiers, the massive 8-track machine, all of it was ultimately daisy-chained down to a standard 13-amp household extension cord.
like you'd use for a toaster.
Yeah. Plugged into a basic socket near a walkway, and some random passerby, maybe a stagehand or a festival goer, just took a heavy step and booted the plug right out of the wall.
It is the ultimate deflation of corporate tension.
So true.
You have all of this posturing, all this maneuvering for control, all the high-level screaming inside a multi-million-dollar recording operation. And it is entirely brought to its knees by a clumsy foot in the mud.
A stray boot dismantles the entire hierarchy.
Yep.
So Vic and Kenny bend down, pick up the plug, and push it back into the socket. Instantly, the power surges back to the truck.
Let there be light.
The lights flicker on, the massive reels on the tape machine spin up, the monitors roar back to life, and the recording resumes.
Back to business.
But the vibe in that tiny room has permanently changed. Denton includes this wonderful little atmospheric detail. He notes that while it was a very warm summer evening outside on the Isle of Wight, the atmosphere inside the recording truck was, as he put it, pretty damn frosty for the rest of Chicago's set.
And you can completely empathize with that frostiness. The entourage had been brutally exposed.
Oh, yeah.
Not only did their micromanaging fail to prevent the blackout, but their hysterical reaction in the dark revealed their utter lack of practical composure.
They looked ridiculous.
Sitting back under the glaring lights with Vic and Kenny, the very guys they sidelined, knowing exactly how useless they had just been. That frosty silence is just the chill of profound, inescapable embarrassment.
Yeah, you can't unscream at your colleagues.
No, you can't.
You can't pretend you are an unflappable master of your domain when the guys you ordered into the corner were the ones who actually had to go outside and save the entire production by literally plugging a cord back into a wall.
Exactly.
It is the sound of a dozen inflated egos simultaneously popping.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Denton leaves us with a fantastic concluding thought in his memoir that just wraps a bow around the whole absurdity.
What does he say?
He writes that all the preparation and knowledge in the world was no match for a fight between a size 13 boot and a 13-amp plug.
That is so good.
And that is the true core of this story. We spend massive amounts of energy agonizing over the complexities of our systems. We focus on optimizing workflows, managing diverse personalities, and winning the political battles in the room.
Right.
But the most sophisticated systems on Earth are still hopelessly vulnerable to the most mundane physical accidents.
It is a brilliant reality check. To synthesize this whole journey for you, we started with a claustrophobic metal box packed with corporate executives fighting tooth and nail for control of a historic recording session.
Only to watch that entire high-stakes, high-stress environment be literally and metaphorically unplugged by a random foot.
It really strips away the illusion of absolute control.
It reminds every expert in that room that they are entirely dependent on the physical world holding together.
And that is exactly why this deep dive matters for you, because it is incredibly easy to get sucked into the Marx Brothers on acid dynamic in whatever field you work in.
Oh, happens all the time.
You can get so hyper-focused on managing the competing egos around you, or get so lost in the weeds of technical debates just trying to justify your own value, that you completely lose sight of the physical foundation you are standing on.
Yeah.
You can win the argument in the boardroom, you can have the most expensive consultants in the world, but you have to remember to check where people are walking. Because a size 13 boot doesn't care about your job title.
True.
So, what does this all mean?
Well, I think it leaves you wondering about the invisible vulnerabilities hiding in our modern lives.
Like what?
I mean, we don't use analog tape machines much anymore, right?
Yeah.
Instead, we build these massive, seemingly godlike digital infrastructures. We rely on cloud servers, automated logistics, and wireless networks that feel entirely detached from the physical world.
Like they're just floating in the sky.
Exactly. But somewhere, at the very bottom of all that invisible magic, there is still a physical wire running through a physical data center.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
The next time you see a massive, inexplicable tech outage in the news, look past the complex corporate explanations and ask yourself, what are the odds that somewhere in the world someone just tripped over a 13-amp plug?